Alrighty, everyone. Looks like we're live now, so I don't have the words up on stream because I need speech to text to write, and I do not have uh, the thing set up so I can share it with my phone and my computer, so I will just read aloud with my phone what I have here.
Demonic Hunter. Written by Leon One the Lion. The town felt like it was holding its breath as the hour drew closer to midnight. Most of the commotion was from law enforcement and the military running all over town looking at computers analyzing the situation. The problem had started about 2 months ago. An unknown entity had been creating pocket dimensions, pulling people in order to feed the inhabitants. It didn't really seem to care all that much as to what it pulled into its pocket dimension, as long as it had some sort of meat to it. People who had returned reported seeing all kinds of animals that had been eaten, and others who had remained reported missing relatives, as well as pets. Temporary satellite dishes were set up around the town, scanning the area for anomalies. The military boys were hard at work trying to figure out where the next mini pocket dimension would appear. In the town, very few people could sleep, not knowing if they would disappear, or if their friends and family would disappear.
Ugh. I feel like that one was bad as well. Guy. What do I want to do with that? Um, hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I want to get rid of that again. That's us. Delete everything but the first sentence. All right. Okay. How do we set this up as a little bit of a mystery? The town felt like it was holding its breath. The clock ticked away. It felt like everyone. Hmm. I already have that sentence. It's not going to do any good to repeat it. No one was moving. No one was saying anything. Families huddled close together, while police and military stood still on their watch. It's here, said one of the military boys, looking at a computer. It's smaller than it was last time. We've breached it several times. Perhaps it can't maintain its size. Within a few moments, families disappeared from each other's arms, as well as several pets and animals in the surrounding area. They found themselves pulled into a mini pocket dimension where a demon sat on a floating throne with several pets around him. "Behold, my pets," he said, "it is chow time." Dig into your heart's consent. Feast upon whatever venison your heart desires. Hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, what do we want now? All right. Maybe I want to switch stories now. I got stuck on that one. I think that one was a little bit better though. Document 3. What is this? Okay, that's nothing irrelevant. Hmm. Well, I haven't actually gotten a listened or gone through this one. Let's see how this one is. It'll be.
A huge double-decker bus was rolling down the highway. Its paint job was worn, the windows dirty with the dust of many miles. There was a young woman sitting behind the wheel. The vehicle was not designed for her size, and her head hit the ceiling. Her legs were spread far apart, so they would not touch the dashboard. Michelle indeed felt uncomfortable. This was the prime reason she hated driving, but they had to take turns doing it, so everything would be fair and square. She listened to the others, chatting in the back of the bus. "Did you find a job for us, where we don't have to travel around like vagabonds, Sandra?" Carolyn asked, but her voice betrayed she already knew the answer. "No, not really. In the bigger cities, most opportunities require us to apply individually, and it's not guaranteed they will accept all of us. On the other hand, anywhere else it's really hard to find something where they need exactly 7 people, either that or it's like Ohio. A lot of people, but they have extremely strict standards that we don't want to go by." Sandra explained for the 1000th time. "But I'm so tired of traveling with all this clutter," Carolyn replied, while digging for something among all the stuff they packed into the bus. The double-decker was converted to have a bedroom in the top compartment, so they wouldn't have to pay for accommodations while out on a job, but as a result, they had a lot less space for their food, weapons, and personal belongings. They had a trailer behind the bus with even more supplies, and there was stuff tied also to the top of the bus. Still, they had to fit 7 people, and even the huge bus proved to be too small for all of them. Something popped under them, and Michelle turned the wheel sharply, the others all ready to take on any opponent that might have attacked them on the road. It was just one of the tires. It blew up from something, Michelle said calmly as she regained control of the bus. "Then shouldn't we stop to change the wheel?" a red-haired girl asked. "You really should get to know our rolling fortress, Tina. There are 2 wheels on that axle. Even if one of them blows up, we can change it at the next stop. It's not urgent." Leona the
I don't remember there being a swerving right there in the last one. If there were 2 wheels on the axle, it wouldn't swerve like that. Huh. I might mess around with that later.
Out-like sniper of the team replied, before Michelle could open her mouth. But will the job pay enough to get it fixed and to take care of the other repairs that we need? Also, we need to purchase food, Carolyn said, worried. We'll figure something out, Sandra said to her. We always do, Michelle nodded. Two girls with messy hairs descended from the top of the bus. They were trying to wipe the sleep off their eyes. That little pop woke you up, girls? Don't be too scared when the bullets start flying, Leona joked with an impish smile. Interesting. When the bullets start flying you suddenly disappear, Sonia, a short, strongly built girl, replied with the same smile. Kale, the other one who just woke up, walked over to the coffee machine and tried to pour some for herself, but didn't even notice that there was nothing in the pot. She sat down and tried to take a sip out of her mug and was disappointed when nothing came out. Afterwards the coffee machine turned on, spilling coffee everywhere, and then Kale stuck her mug underneath the coffee machine. She pulled the cup back, letting coffee spill all over as Sandra quickly grabbed the coffee pot and tried putting it back under as quickly as possible. She ended up slipping on the coffee, crashing to the floor, and coffee spilled on top of her. Let me clean this up, Carolyn said, as she motioned Sandra to go and take a shower. I know it's early in the morning for some, but still you should pay attention. Now we have to clean up your mess, while you are just sipping your coffee, Carolyn grumbled. It was an honest mistake, Kale said, then took a sip of her coffee. She grimaced, she forgot to put sugar in it. They rolled into town about mid-afternoon and slowed down, trying to identify where the office of the mayor was located. They were lucky that there was a fairly big parking lot a few blocks down in the back of a grocery store. They parked the bus with the trailer taking up 5 spaces in the lot.
Only
The
5.
driver's door opened, and Michelle crawled out, rolling over on the ground, thankful that she could finally stretch her limbs. The others followed her through the other door. The crew split up from there. Leona, the sniper, stayed behind in the bus, enchanting all of the bullets that the entire crew used. It was normal for her to enchant bullets for an entire week, for them to spend in just a day. Every so often, she would build up a stockpile on the long, arduous journey, enchanting bullets day in and day out. At this point, she had built up a month's supply in normal circumstances, but she was worried that based off the number of opponents that she had heard about, it would all be gone within a few hours. After all, no one else could enchant the bullets. Each of the different kinds of magic that had made a home in the bullets, she wore strapped around her waist. They were all fused to her soul, making it difficult, next to impossible, for anybody to use them unless she first enchanted an item with it. Once an item was enchanted, all that it needed was a trigger to activate it. It could be as simple as a word or series of knocks in any pattern. But in this case, it was the simple pound of the hammer hitting the back of the primer on the shells. Michelle and Tina set up chairs in front of the bus to keep an eye on things, making sure nobody stole their stuff, and to occasionally inquire from the passing packs of survivors what was going on. Water the drink of life, Michelle began the enchantment. Let the spirit flow through you come to life and awaken. Tina had overheard the chant. It was normal for magic users to start the chant aloud to awaken the magic. After a few moments, Michelle cast another enchantment to gather some clouds above their heads. As a bigger cloud was formed from the smaller one, it gave them some shade. Cool little trick, pool girl, Tina said with a mischievous smile. Michelle just shrugged her shoulder at that. Sonia and Kale went shopping and to talk to the citizens to get a handle on the situation. They found out that the mayor had been using the rogue dogs as an excuse for why people should be banned from having powers, and put lots of restriction on them for fear of the magic repopulating and inhabiting other animals.
Definitely.
Carolyn started her enchantment. Shadows come forth, heed my call, and prove all that you are not weaklings that flee from sunlight.
Oh, I'm not sure if that was my bad direction or if it's the writers. That definitely didn't flow very well. I hate editing. Not even sure how I'm gonna mess around with that. Definitely needs to have something to happen to it. Guy. Maybe I'll just listen to this all the way through. I've been needing to. I've never gotten through it yet.
Sunlight.
It's just making me cringe.
Show your strength that all might fear it. She then began her enchantment to conjure a shadow cycle, allowing her and Sandra to jump on to get to the mayor's office, much quicker than walking. You didn't send out your shadow for familiars again, did you? Sandra asked. I would never do that, Carolyn replied. You heard me start my chant to start the magic. How could I have even done it? She said, throwing the question back at her. We both know that sometimes you never let your magic rest, keeping it open so you can use it anytime, Sandra said. And you're grinning like you're familiar, suggested some new boys. We came to town to work, not to pick up boys.
Oy.
There's nothing wrong with checking out some of the local boys, especially if they are strong, capable boys, Carolyn smiled back at her. They entered the building, and on the reception, the mayor's secretary greeted them, asking them what they wanted. It was usually Carolyn who took the lead in these situations. We are here to see the mayor. We have a scheduled meeting with him. I believe it's in about 15 minutes. It's good that you are here. It's hard to find good work that can handle a job for the price that we can afford. Glad that you were able to make it. The office of the mayor was sparsely decorated, but it betrayed the taste of an older, conservative man. There was a single black and white picture on the desk of a young woman. There was a black ribbon in the corner of the picture. It stood out amongst the clutter of paperwork that resembled the daily life of the mayor. They didn't have long to look around as the door opened soon, and a small, frail man with a full, gray mustache entered. Hey, girls. I'm Mayor Nelson, the papa of this small town we call Roxville. Rita told me you may be able to help us with our little mutie problem. He chuckled nervously as he took a seat behind his oak desk. My name is Sandra, and this is one of my best friends from childhood and coworker. Yes, said the mayor. I'd heard that you had split off from your father's church to start your own company with all of your childhood friends. Such a rebel you are, and your father is such a reputable man. Such a shame that you would distance yourself from him. My father and I are not that separated. We just have different views on what we want. But enough of this. What are the things you want us to fight, and how much are you going to pay us? We call them muties, like mutants. It's kind of weird, they look like a mix between a wolf and a pig or boar, or something. They are hybrids of some sorts. Magic can create some weird stuff. They are on the southeast part of town. For the most part of the year, they are usually docile, but as the big games start migrating, they come out of their lairs and start taking the livestock of people, and there were even a few deaths caused by them. I've already hired several hunters in the last few years, but nobody returned from the encounter, he explained while nervously playing with a pen on his desk. So, they killed several experienced hunters already? Carolyn. Well, maybe they weren't that experienced, I don't know, the mayor replied as a drop of sweat ran down his face. How much? Sandra. Well, we can't afford much. 30,000? Huh. Carolyn grunted, upset with the price. Deal, Sandra said immediately. Carolyn was surprised, but didn't say anything, not in front of the mayor, who swallowed a huge amount of saliva, and looked even more anxious than he did before the huntresses accepted the job. Meanwhile, back at the double-decker bus, an officer approached the girls and began writing them up a ticket for using magic without a permit. What the hell do you think you are doing? It was you who called us in for help, now you are fining me for the powers we plan to use to save this town? The officer just handed her the ticket, not caring that much, and went to check inside the bus, as his badge was still vibrating, detecting the magic.
That's
Just
an
calm down,
interesting
Michelle.
idea.
We'll clear it
Why
up
would you
later,
have the
Tina said,
badge be
trying to calm her
vibrating?
down, before she hurt the policeman.
Uh,
The officer left after, not even looking at them, just getting on his motorcycle. Leona came out of the bus fuming, waving a piece of paper in her hand. That bastard just fined me for using magic. The hell he thinks he is? Tina sighed.
That's terrible.
All right, let me text Sandra.
This is awful.
She wrote to Sandra, and her phone beeped while sitting across the table from the mayor. She looked down on her phone while the mayor was explaining something about the current ban on
terrible. It looks like I'm about a quarter of the way through based off of the scroll. Oh boy. I'm now seeing why I've been avoiding reading through this story, because it is so bad. Part of it is my bad direction, and part of it is the my writer doesn't speak English. English isn't their native language. I think they said they were from what was the country? It's on the tip of my tongue. They're all the way over in Guy. Why can't I remember? It'll come to me eventually. I don't know if I can take any more of this story. It's so bad. Oh. Alright, I'm gonna work on something different. Let me see. What else do I have? The Buried Alive. Not much of that. Well, I'll hit read aloud here so you guys can enjoy
Buried
what little
Alive.
I have.
John knocked on the door of the home his fiancée lived in. Her father opened the door, greeting John with a warm hug. The two conversed for a minute before the father left for work, letting John into the house.
And that's as far as I've gotten on that. Well, what all do we want to do here? Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Let us... He strolled through the house until he found his fiancée in the kitchen cooking with her mother. I think it spelt fiancé wrong there. We don't care. He greeted them both. And stayed, hugging his fiancée around the waist as they talked about what plans they wanted to do today. They talked about going to the carnival today, as well as visiting a few other shops and going for a stroll through the woods. Well, that didn't spell much of anything correctly. I'm not concerned about it right now. They didn't get much of a chance, as soon there was a huge burst of sand near the center of town. Earth came streaming up like a geyser, covering the whole town in dirt, burying people alive. Said pairing instead of bearing. Nice. They rushed to close the shutters on the window in order to keep as much of it out as possible. Sand began piling up against the window, and they heard the creaks of wood as it slowly became more and more weight than what the shutters were capable of holding back. Eventually, they broke from the overwhelming weight of all of the sand as it began pouring into the house. The three of them found themselves throwing anything in the path they could think of to slow it down. The table, a few chairs, and any other loose item they could throw up against it to use as a barrier. But none of it was of any use. Eventually the sand piled up, becoming more than whatever they had could block it. Oh, excuse me. Surrounded in darkness, they could barely see anything, not knowing what was going on, only feeling the sand pile up against their feet. Climb, said John. We can't let this bury us alive. He grabbed his fiancée's hand, and together they began climbing the pile as the room became filled with more and more sand. Eventually, it got to the point where no more sand could fill in the room, and they were left with their heads touching the ceiling as they bent down to try and not bonk their heads. Bonk their heads. His fiancée called out for her mother, hoping to hear her voice, but it seemed to be in vain. He calmed her down, telling her that they were going to get out of here alive. And as soon as he got her to safety, he would come back and save her mother. How will he How will we escape from this? She said. There's no hope. We're going to die in here. No, he said. I have a knife. I'm going to cut out the ceiling and get you out of here. He pulled out his knife and began chipping away at the wooden beams supporting the ceiling. It was hard work, but after a long time, his knife finally pierced the ceiling. A shot of joy went through him, realizing that he was about to see the sunlight for the first time since the windows were covered. He withdrew his knife, and instead of seeing sunlight, sand began falling down on top of him. This can't be it, he thought to himself. There's no way there's that much sand. He heard the creaking of the roof as it began to creak from the weight of all the sand on top of it. Instinctively, he covered his wife's body with his own as the ceiling collapsed in on top of them. Oh, I said wife instead of fiance. Fiance. This isn't over, he thought to himself, struggling to figure out a way of how to escape. He could hear his wife. I said it again. Fiance struggling to breathe as he shoved upwards, trying to get the weight off of her chest, but to no avail. There has to be a way out of here, he thought to himself, as he slowly lost consciousness. All right. That's about the end of that story. It is definitely a little rough. Alright. I think this is where I'll call it today. Goodbye forever. Remember to commit internet